Good day, Babylonians. My name is Songs of Rage, and I'm back with another Devastator build for a game of Outriders to bring to you. And today we are looking at my Scorpion build, and the reason why we have called it that is because it's all about pulling enemies to wherever you want them to be. They want to run away? No, they are coming straight back to you, all the way to that certain point, and you are able to choose which of the enemies that it gravitates towards. Now, the best part about this is that this works perfectly, and the reason, and it's going to explain why I am running with a teammate for the first time in the background, but this works perfectly in tandem with any teammates that are running anomaly kind of power builds. You've got a Technomancer that's running Scrapnel, or like Torrential Downpour, or the Unlimited Minigun builds, for example, or they've got the Devastators. This would actually pair quite well with those. You've got Anomaly Power Pyromancers as well, and Anomaly Power Tricksters as well. Oh, the Anomaly Power Tricksters would probably be a really good shout, especially the ones that are spin to win, because you can literally group up every single enemy right there in front of them, and all they have to do is just spin their way, and they will just mow through everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to show off the build. I'm going to show you some brilliant gameplay in the background as well, where I've ran with Danwaz, and that was just with a Torrential Downpour set, just to be able to get an idea as to how much damage this can put out, even though the build is not optimized. So I'm really excited to show you this. So sit back, enjoy, and let's get into the build. First off, let's address the elephant that's in the room. What legendary armor set are we using? Now, Seismic Commander is widely considered to be the best legendary set for Devastator. But what if I told you that the Marshals and set here was just as good, and if not, you would actually potentially run all 5 pieces on this. Now, it's not necessarily the best, it's not necessarily the most efficient in terms of solo play anyway, but it does give you a nice bit of survivability. It gives you all the anomaly power that you need, it gives you all the tier 3 skills that you could potentially need as well, and it just offers so much more, and it looks badass while you do it. Even better, you even look like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat while you wear this. So what are we pairing with this? Well, the weapons are standard because this is a skills based build. This is an anomaly. We are going for things like the Death Shield, we're going for things for the Animoire, and potentially even Shadow Comet if you don't have anything like those like Moaning Winds to be able to pair with it. So good start, but as long as you've got Fortress, you're good to go. As long as that's on any of the guns that you're currently equipping while you fight, you'll be absolutely fine. In terms of the actual mods, we'll touch the skills in a second, but in terms of the actual mods, the Marshal's Helmet rolls with Anomaly Power, Cooldown Reduction, Skills Life Leech, and it does that for the chest as well and the waistcloth. It changes slightly when you get to the footgear and the gloves, and that's because it offers max health instead of the Anomaly Power. So, but you still get really good cooldown reduction, you still get really good skills life leech, so it's really good in terms of keeping yourself alive. While we look at the helmet, the tier 3 mod that comes with this is Wide Horizons, and this increases the skills radius by 25% for Endless Mass. Now, Endless Mass is going to be the backbone for this, and it's going to get even better once that new patch gets dropped and goes live, because when they're in Endless Mass, you are then able to do damage to them rather than having to wait. You're still able to inflict the status, you're still able to inflict the damage, so this build will go up in value once that patch drops and goes live, so just keep your eyes out for that. So increasing the skills radius by 25% is quite nice, because obviously that's just radius. Diameter, we're looking at an extra 50%, so this will be a big circle, so it gives it a little bit more forgiving, but it allows you to pull so many more enemies towards the center. Now I've changed the extra mod that comes with this to Ground Crush, where it increases the skills based damage of Earthquake by 84,000. Earthquake is going to be primarily your damage dealer, but you don't necessarily need it because you are going for full support. So if you, for example, if you are not looking to be able to do any kind of damage and you're just purely there to be able to do to help your teammates, just to buff them, or just be able to keep yourself alive, you can quite happily swap that out for things like Reflect Bullets, Golem, things like that, or you can just keep Earthquake. There's one tier 3 mod that I would potentially suggest in a bit, which we'll talk about in amendments, but that's in case you have any kind of like weapon firepower builds running in your squad as well, but we'll touch that in a second. So moving swiftly on from there, we've gone for the Marshal's armor, and obviously we've already been through the stats of that, but this comes with high intensity, and what this does is anomaly damage against affected targets that have been pulled is increased by 33% for 5 seconds. Now, as you can imagine, with Endless Mass and the fact that we've increased the radius so much, you are pulling a lot of enemies, and all of those are going to be, well, just have anomaly damage increased by 33%, every single one of them. And that's nothing. We are going to be stacking so much. You honestly won't believe some of the numbers that you're able to put out. In fact, I'll even give you a damage percentage of just an increase in a bit, just to be able to give you an idea. And the mod that this standardly rolls with is Human Comet, and this increases the skills damage for Gravity Leap by 129,233. Now, Gravity Leap's going to be our other main primary damage dealer. I would probably say that Gravity Leap is more important than Earthquake, but obviously, you can play, like I said, with the helmet, you can change that to your playstyle, but Gravity Leap and Endless Mass are probably going to be the core skills for this build. So moving swiftly on, we've gone for the Marshal's Waistcloth. Now this comes with power assimilation, and this increases your anomaly power by 11,061 for each elite that's present on the battlefield. Now this is a really nice tier 3 mod to have when you're going for skills type builds. I would highly recommend that you have this regardless of whatever build you are running, so it gives you such a nice increase, and I would highly recommend you pick that up. Now in terms of the other mod, we replace this to be able to have extra quake, so we can activate our earthquake one more time before triggering the cooldown. This is kind of standard when you go for any kind of earthquake build. You want to have up to 3 earthquakes, but you want as many as you can physically possibly fit into your build. So we've gone for 2, but you'll get to see that in a second. Going from there, we've gone for the gloves, and the gloves, even though they roll with max health, do actually give us the really nice tier 3 mod of double jump, and that means Gravity Leap can be used twice before triggering the cooldown. I would highly recommend that you keep this mod. If you can find another way to fit it in, then by all means go for it and still get your anomaly power roll, but I'd still think that the Martial Gauntlets are actually a really nice one to run with this. Also, on top of that, I've gone for Unstoppable Force. This is another tier 3 mod that is absolutely perfect for any kind of anomaly build that you actually use in this game. And this increases your anomaly power by 50% of your resistance piercing. Now, in terms of the skill tree, I believe this build gets 30% as standard, so we get a nice 15% boost to our anomaly power. But we also do have the mod that enemies that we hit with our melee skill, every single one adds another 15% to our resistance piercing, so that means another 7.5% damage boost on top of that. So that's quite nice to have. I highly recommend that you get that mod, and that can be found on the pyro gloves that you can buy from Tiago. And then last but not least, we're looking at the foot gear, and this rolls with the tier 3 mod of Despair, and this is huge. This is a game changer, and enemies within the damage radius of Gravity Leap will receive 1.5 times more anomaly damage for 5 seconds. On top of that, I've gone for, I think this is the best way to be able to run this, but Endless Mass inflicts vulnerable on the enemies pulled by the skill. So when you look at what we've actually got in terms of multiplying our damage, we've got Mosh Pit, so vulnerable, so that's a nice 15% by itself. We've got things like the high intensity, so the anomaly damage against affected enemies is increased by 33% for 5 seconds. It's being spread around by the Martial actual set piece as well, so we're dealing an extra 10% of anomaly damage across the 4 targets that have been pulled in by Endless Mass. And then last but not least, with the fact that we've got double jump and Despair, it seems to stack from what I can tell. So you hit them with the first Despair, you apply that 1.5 times more damage to every single enemy that's within that splash radius, and then you go for the second jump, land in the exact same spot, and all of a sudden you're doing so much more damage. And I think that's going to be the reason why. So if there's ever an elite like a Broodmother that you're having a bit of trouble taking down, you want to be able to mosh pit another enemy that's nearby, get them inflicted with vulnerable, get them inflicted with the extra anomaly damage, get them inflicted with the Despair twice, and then all of a sudden you will see a massive skyrocket in terms of anomaly power, whether it be yourself or whether it be your teammates. So just to give you an idea of some damage numbers, I was doing the testing in the run in the background with Dan, and we were able to, on the Broodmother, we were actually able to take some of the figures and bring them to you here. So to give you an idea of the increase in damage, the Broodmother at the end, from a normal one single rocket from the Tools of Destruction rocket launcher, did 659,000 points of damage. Now, like I said, this isn't an optimized build for Dan by any means, so this can go obviously much higher if you pay attention to like the bombing run build that we've done. I'll drop a link in the video right now, but 659,000 was the base. after I did all the boosts and I was able to inflict all the status that I needed to, this skyrocketed to 1.6 million per shot. Now that's a 242% of the original shot, so that's an increase of 142%, and that's incredible. That's huge. That's all the debuffs that we're able to do. You think if as a Devastator that's what you can offer, just think what other builds can do, like anomaly power technomancers, where they can increase anomaly power by like 40%, for example, by chucking out a turret. Little things like that, and it just makes me wonder, what can a phaser beam pyro do to a single target that's been had all these debuffs applied? I haven't been able to do that just yet because I don't have a pyro build that's up to level 50. I don't have them fully geared, and I don't have them ready to be able to do any kind of testing like that. But this could be a game changer for Devastators. Now, we always talked about the fact that Devastators are the tanks, they are the crowd control, all that kind of thing. With Endless Mass, they have the ability to do that. It's not the same way that we were expecting, it's not the way that we envisioned for Devastators to actually be used, but it is such a good skill, it's highly overlooked, and it does imply all those weaknesses in terms of debuffs, and it also brings the enemies where you want them to be able to just maximize your damage output. Just think, a phaser beam pyro doesn't need to be stood in the right location anymore. They don't need to worry about enemies that are walking away. You can have a Devastator group them all up right there, inflict all this debuff in terms of anomaly damage that's going to be coming their way, and then just get blasted away by one single ability. And that to me is insane. Now, what do you do if you are running any teammate that's using firepower? Now, with Blighted Round Technomancers, for example, they don't worry about armor, so you don't need to worry about that side of things. They will do their own thing, and they will just be happy with the fact that you've grouped all the enemies up into one location for them. But any other kind of build that is using firepower, they will want armor reduced. Now, this is where the mods for Earthquake can be amended. So, for example, there is a tier 3 mod that permanently steals 20% of the armor of the enemies that have been afflicted with the Earthquake. Now, for example, what you could do is take off the second Quake, put that mod on there, and then when you do your Endless Mass to be able to gather everyone up, you then hit them with the Earthquake, and then you do your Gravity Leap straight after, and that way you've debuffed for every single person that's in the group right there. That's if you want to go full support. That's an idea, but the one that I'm showing you at the moment still has a little bit of damage and is able to put some damage output. I was still able to beat the Technomancer in terms of damage, but like I said, that's because Dan's build isn't fully optimized just yet. But you are still an asset to the team. You are still able to hold your own, and you are able to kill enemies to be able to trigger your own regen. Now, if you are looking to be able to benefit yourself in terms of doing a little bit of extra damage, you can always go down the Earthquake route and be able to replace things like Vulnerable on Endless Mass into giving yourself a third Earthquake. That's completely feasible. The second clip that you're going to see in the background for this video will be me running that, and that's just being able to put out a little bit more damage rather than a bit more support, but that's completely up to you. That's the interchangeable part of this build. You're absolutely free to be able to customize it to whatever you want, but the core is the Endless Mass and is the Gravity Leap. Next thing to talk about is how the Martial set really kind of comes into its own with this build, and that's the fact that when you pull those enemies in and the 4 get affected by the 10% of anomaly damage or the 30% of weapon damage, if it's anomaly, the reason why I asked Dan to be able to go for a torrential downpour, so it has the cluster bombs, was the fact that you have the initial explosion which then shares so much out. So for example, if it was an 800k cluster bomb and it would share 80k across the 4 enemies that have been affected, you've then got the cluster bombs that happen afterwards, and each one of those explosions will then deal 10% of that to the other enemies that are affected. So all of a sudden you're seeing anywhere between like a 30 to 40% damage increase just from using that one skill alone for your teammate, which is really nice. It's the fact that you could probably potentially melt all 5 enemies, all 5 elites on the drought place, just so quickly from summoning them all together, having all 5 of those afflicted with that damage share ability. you could have such strong cluster bombs go off, and then they could potentially be wiped. Now, I'd probably have to run my torrential downpour at the moment, because like mine is fully optimized at the moment for how I want it to be, whereas Dan still needs a few armor pieces. But then I'd have to ask Dan to be able to run this Devastator just to be able to get it to work. So that's something that we'll probably do in our own time, but I have a feeling that that could be one of the quickest ways. If not, it would then definitely be Phaser Beam, for the fact that they would be able to melt all 5 of them in one single shot. So the question is this the best build for the Devastator? Is this better than Vlad the Impaler? Is this better than any kind of seismic build? The answer is it's kind of a mixed bag. This is primarily grouped. It's primarily for group play. If you're arranging with a couple of friends, or a few people in the random Discord or something like that, if you're arranging so that you're all running anomaly builds, this would be the best build to be able to run for that, because you would be supporting them, you'd be supporting yourself, and you'd all have a great time. But Vlad the Impaler, the build that we did before this, even though it has such a high damage output, I'd probably recommend that's more for solo play. Not that you can't do any work with it when it comes to group play or anything like that. You could easily do so, but I feel like it's there to be able to not worry about any of the teammates. It's not there to be able to buff anyone else. It's not there to be able to benefit anyone else's game. It's primarily for you to be able to keep yourself alive and just absolutely decimate everyone that's in the way. So up to you. If you're a solo player, stick with Vlad or Seismic. If you're a group player or co-op or a frequent streamer or anything like that, I would highly recommend that you pick this Devastator build, just to be able to make things easier for your teammates that you're playing with. That pretty much wraps up the Scorpion build for the Devastator that I'm bringing to you today. I had a lot of fun being able to make this. This was an absolute blast to be able to put together, to be able to see what kind of synergies there were, and thanks so much to DanWes to be able to testing out my theories and making sure it does actually perform in a co-op gameplay sense. Honestly, if you have a Devastator around, if you're either bored of the Seismic or you have the Martial set and you don't have the Seismic, I'd highly recommend that you pick this up. It's great in solo play, it's even better in co-op. As always, don't forget to head over to our Discord. The link is in below in the description, and we'd love to see you over there. That's for speaking to us anytime that's outside of streams, or just being able to drop any kind of questions for your builds, or if you just want to show off your build to the rest of our community. It is just over 90 strong at the moment, so I'd love to see it hit the triple figures. Hopefully we'll be able to see you all over there soon. But that just leaves the usual, so hope you've enjoyed. If you did, drop us a like, drop a subscribe, it would mean the world to us, and keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I'll see you all on that next video.